everything on the table. But what I hear from the administration, and if the Washington Post is to be believed, that's way in extreme of what I think is necessary or even should be talked about.
I don't think the federal government has any business having a list of law-abiding citizens who choose to exercise their right to keep and bear arms.
That was a reaction from some of the newest senators to a Washington Post report that a group led by Vice President Joe Biden is considering measures that would require universal background checks, weapon sales, tracking, expanded mental health checks, and more penalties for carrying guns near schools. Let's bring back the gaggle. Michael Steele, Shira Toeplitz, and Jen Psaki. Shira, you're on Capitol Hill. The person that used the word extreme there was new Democratic senator from a rural state, the state of North Dakota there, when talking about what she read in the Washington Post about guns. And therein lies the issue of why gun legislation on Capitol Hill's future is very grim. Is it not?
Right. I mean, forget the House for a second, which is obviously controlled by Republicans. I mean, if you look at the Senate alone, it's the conservative Democrats, people like Joe Manchin, who
from
obviously...
the rural states.
Exactly. Yes. Joe Donnelly, new senator from Indiana, and Heidi Heitkamp from North Dakota. Those are the people that need convincing that they can go really make the leap on some gun control measures, if they're willing. You know,
Jen, this is sort of this it's a tricky issue for the White House. On one hand, you have some on the left who sit there and say the White House has been lacking any sort of spine when it comes to gun issues. But then there's the political reality staring them in the face. Heidi Heitkamp, who will be with them 85% of the time in every other piece of legislation.
I mean, I would add two other challenges for the White House. One is the timeline. You know, already people aren't paying attention to this as much as they were in December. You know, the media coverage is dwindling, of course. And the second is you have a lot of well-meaning groups on the Democratic side who are running in many different directions, and the NRA is a formidable opponent. So,
you know, it's interesting. That's a very important point here. Is it, you know, Michael Bloomberg doing this, you have a group that's with ties to Move On doing that, the White House doing their thing, and the NRA sticking to plan.
Absolutely. And of all the groups, the only one that's really been able to galvanize their base of support is the NRA, because everyone else seems to be fractured in pockets. So the more that those voices out there can galvanize the people behind some movement that supports the ultimate gain of the
don't underestimate.
administration.
I hear you. Don't underestimate the Newtown families.
I agree.
9/11 victims' families were a powerful political force.
I agree.
Newtown families could become a very powerful force. All right, shameless plug time. Share you first.
I'd like to shameless plug my Northwestern Wildcats for winning their first bowl game in 64 years.
If it wasn't for Northwestern, the Big Ten would have really been in the dumper.
I never thought anyone would say that sentence.
I know. How about that?
Okay, I'm shameless plugging my husband's grandma. Her birthday is coming up this weekend. She is an MSNBC watcher.
So she's
hello.
Watching right now.
Yes, she probably is.
Hi, Grandma. There you go.
I'm shamelessly plugging my Washington Redskins, and I want to thank them for a thrill of a lifetime, even though, you know, the agony of defeat can be disappointing.
Yeah, I know.
What.
Will there be tumult in this offseason for Washington? Anyway, that's it for this edition of the Daily Rundown. Looking forward to college football being over and not having to talk about a certain game that happens tonight. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Coming up.